Yo, what up? Welcome to another episode of the Oakland Warriors podcast. I'm Patrick, and I'm joined by my good friend Aram in Toronto. What's up, Aram?
Hello. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, man. For those of you listening, it's Christmas, and we just watched the Warriors smack the Phoenix Suns 116-107 in Phoenix in a Christmas Day game, which, I mean, I'll be honest, man. I was like, hey, I expect us to lose this game. We're down so many guys. Phoenix Suns, amazingly, I don't think they're down anybody for COVID protocols. And the Warriors came back and just smacked them, you know?
Yeah. At the beginning of the game, when they throw up the graphics of the starting lineup and they showed the Warriors, the lineup is what it is. And we've come to know some of these guys like Gary Payton II, Otto Porter Jr., and they're filling in admirably. And then they show the Suns starting five, and that's the starting five they had in the finals last year. So it's kind of like I was in the same boat. I was like, okay, let's just see let's put up a fight. But I think how we've always talked is if you have Steph and Draymond, you always have a chance. And this team is super interesting to watch. They're fun. Their depth is incredible. And you've mentioned it a lot before, is that you take Wiggins out and you can fill in a spot. They've just built this roster with a lot more intent, and it's going in the right direction. And obviously they lucked out a little bit with Gary Payton. They released him. Anybody could have gotten him,
Yeah.
But he was great, especially in the first half. His defensive intensity was awesome. And then Porter was the closer. This was a great game. I had so much fun watching this game. And also because, the Warriors haven't had much, and Curry haven't had much luck on Christmas. So this was a nice change of pace. It was a great surprise. Yeah, I just had so much fun watching this.
Yeah, I mean, for all y'all listening, so the Warriors were missing
Take a deep breath. It's a long list.
Yeah. Andrew Wiggins, Jordan Poole, and Moses Moody due to COVID protocols, and Damian Lee. I can't forget him, even though I always apparently do.
All caps. Damian Lee.
And then, of course, they're missing Andre Iguodala. He was sitting out, just kind of maintaining his knee issue. And then you have Klay Thompson and James Wiseman. And I was like hoping that the Warriors would win, of course. But pragmatically speaking, I was like, hey, if the Suns win, then it is what it is. This just affects the standings, the head-to-head matchups. It doesn't tell me anything about which team is better. I would have still thought that the Warriors were going to be the better team no matter what. But the awesome thing about going into their house and beating them soundly is that it shakes the Phoenix Suns. Like, those guys are going to be shook to some extent, right? Monty Williams, great coach. These guys are confident, Chris Paul, whatever. But you're still going to be shook because these are the Golden State Warriors. This game reminded me of a lot of the back-breaking Warriors Rockets games that the Warriors would just somehow, it would be a close game, and then the Warriors would just figure it out. Sometimes it used to be Steph doing it. Sometimes it was Klay. Instead of those guys, it was Otto Porter Jr. Otto Porter Jr. looked like Klay Thompson in the Western Conference Finals. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
he had some heat check threes in the end there. It was incredible. It was awesome to watch.
To me, this game is amazing because we won, but all those dudes were not playing. Are you kidding me? You know what I'm saying? Like, your top rotation guys weren't in the game. You were missing two starters, two potential Hall of Famers. I say potential. Klay Thompson's definitely. And then I'm hoping Iguodala, but we'll see. Definitely his number will get hung up in the rafters someday. And then you're missing James Wiseman, your number 2 pick from a year ago. So all things are looking up. And I've talked before the season that what the Warriors' new guys, their younger guys, need are some of these tough spotlight, huge stage wins. And this is one of them. Otto Porter Jr., not a young guy, 28, 29, but he hasn't really had many of these high pressure battles. Gary Payton II, also not a young guy, but also needs to have some of that experience. Bielitsa. And then you look at Jonathan Kuminga, who is one of our favorites, has been for a long time. And the way he plays, Steve Kerr put him on Chris Paul, and he didn't I don't believe he got baited into any of those trash Chris
There was
Paul.
one. There was one in the
Okay.
first half. He was like 90
Okay.
feet from the basket. He tried to pick him up full court, but aside from that, it was pretty impressive to see that size, that length. I mean, this roster, these guys really stepped up, like you said, Bielitsa, Kuminga. Shout out to Kendari Weatherspoon. That
Is it
dude was
Weatherspoon or Witherspoon?
Weatherspoon,
Okay.
like Clarence Weatherspoon.
Gotcha.
But he was great. He wasn't scared.
No.
He just plugged in. I mean, we were chatting, and Jeff Doughton Jr. better look out because this guy
Chioza better watch out. Please.
Yeah, our favorite Chioza. But man, I mean, these guys really stepped up. And you know, this paired with the Memphis game, the last game that they played, the intensity and the focus that these guys brought, it's just like you are saying, they need these settings, these environments to show themselves, you know, what are you made of? It's easy to walk away from a game where you're winning by 12, you hold on to the lead, and hey, you'll take that. But these ones that are against tough defenses, against hot teams, with great players and great coaching, you know, this is an impressive win. And, you know, after the Memphis game, Draymond talked about how badly he wanted that game. And you can't tell me that they didn't want this game either, because, I mean, you want all the wins you can get, but some games mean a lot more, right? Do you think Steph doesn't know that he hasn't shot well on Christmas? He didn't shoot it great tonight, but he still, you know, he scored over 30 points. He was great in the first half. So, and you know, he made some clutch shots in the second half. So, you know, you can't tell me that these guys didn't want this game on this stage. Certain games just mean more.
Absolutely. Like, and you want to send a message, right? Like, Draymond knows that, the veterans know that, Steph knows that. It's like, you look at the Memphis Grizzlies and they're coming up great, but come on, they're nowhere close to the Warriors at any point when they have a decent roster, when they're at full strength. And same with the Suns, to be honest. It's like, after the first game in Phoenix, you're like, okay, the Suns are legit, but the Warriors didn't play well. The second game, a couple days later, the Warriors played better. But no matter what, you're still looking at a team that is going to add a hell of a lot more dudes.
Yeah.
And that second half of the season, when all these guys are back, you know, knock on wood, nobody else gets injured or whatever, like, for a long time. But once you add those dudes, this is a totally different team in a sense. And one thing I actually really liked about what I saw was, we've talked about this before, like the Warriors winning culture, the championship culture, like championship DNA, and how that is starting to trickle down as every week goes by and you see this team. And looking at these dudes, they played like that, right? And Bielitsa, Otto Porter Jr., Gary Payton II, Kuminga, all those guys are affected by that. And it's crazy. Like, it totally works. Steve Kerr said a couple games ago, after Kuminga had a good showing, that on a bad team, Kuminga has great nights like he had in Toronto. But on this team, he learns how to win. And we've all known that, right? That's a benefit. But we're starting to see that.
And also Draymond said something similar, is that, you know, he believes that if they're going to go far, like this guy, Kuminga, does things that nobody else on the roster can do. And if he can reach that, it's going to just make them even better. I mean, you talk about, we're missing people who haven't played this season yet. I mean, just think about who Kuminga will be at the end of the season versus what he is right now. And an example of this, in this game, you saw how he could be a real contributor to a winning game. He won't be the star, that's in his future. But for now, what he did was contribute to winning. And, you know, what was also fun, it was great to see him out there. He was enjoying it, you know, like he was cracking a smile. He didn't look nervous. He didn't look shook at all.
Right.
So that's great to see. Like, the moment's not too big, and just getting more reps against these top teams and getting up for it. Hey, it's really exciting.
When he got smacked in the face by JaVale McGee, he was smiling.
he got his face like palmed.
Yeah,
that was incredible. That was an incredible foul.
That's like a borderline play. Like, if his leg got caught under him or if he got poked in the eye, like, yeah, he legit just was like smiling. And most importantly, he hit most of his free throws. His free throw stroke in clutch moments. Like there were a lot of like the whole second half was like clutch moments,
Yeah.
and he unfazed hit his free throws. His stroke looks good. He hit a three tonight in a
Mm-hmm.
clutch three. He was 5 for 6 from the line. I mean, we've talked about this last time. He's tracking to be the Warriors' best player in maybe 4 years. And that reverse layup, I mean, are you kidding me? Like,
Oh, it's
you know,
beautiful.
that was amazing. Like when Draymond pointed to him to cut baseline backdoor, and he did. He it may have been the camera angle, but he was pretty close to underneath the basket
Yeah.
or underneath the backboard, and reached out and threw it up off the glass, and as if it were nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Doris Burke on the broadcast was talking about the Warriors threading the needle. Let's be honest, like the term threading the needle shouldn't actually really apply anymore to the Warriors. Not that it's going to be super easy, but it's not really a needle anymore.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, can they just balance this? It's not like the super impossible thing. Now we're seeing that it's real. And for as much as you and I like Kuminga before the draft, in the preseason and all that stuff, he's impressing me more and more because of these things that we've talked about during the season. Like he is taking the coaching, obviously. He is responding and meeting the challenge. Like it's not easy to be 6'8" and guard Chris Paul
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
rookie, as a 19-year-old. That is something I would not have expected. I expected him to make a difference a little bit later in the season, and then, like have dumb fouls, like a physical rookie, and he's not doing that. And that's what makes him playable. And so this combined with his natural skill set, his shot coming along, him getting reps in these moments, him hitting his free throws, him not being as scared. It's like, well, this team is, I mean, the depth we've talked about for so long, but like it's just deeper and deeper.
I will also say too, just to wrap up Kaminga, we have said he needs to rebound better. Kerr said that. Everybody said it. He only had one rebound, but it was an aggressive rebound. So I'll take that as progress.
He actually seemed to rebound well when he first started getting minutes. I don't know like why he's fallen off, but he was in the mix. He was going for like, trying to at least tip the ball if he couldn't get his hands on it.
It's not a Westbrook Thunder thing where people are boxing out and
Right.
JK, you go get the rebound. It's like the Warriors are doing great gang rebounding, and so
Yeah.
you're not going to really see one guy getting all the boards. But I was thinking about this game at the beginning when I saw the active roster. I was like, uh-oh. Because I guess, I am still skeptical or maybe waiting for the other shoe to drop on Otto Porter Jr., Bielitsa.
Mm-hmm.
These, there's reasons why they were vet minimums, right?
Yeah.
But games like this obviously make you feel better about that. And in the post game glow of that, of watching it, it's kind of reminding me, a lot of people have talked about, oh, this team has like strength in number vibes, and that's true. But at the same time, it also made me think of the 2010 Giants, the first World Series, and not to make cross sport comparisons, and that Giants team definitely didn't have anybody like Steph, but just in terms of like this kind of cast of misfits and broken toys and whatnot,
Yeah.
right? Vet
It's
mins,
true.
like JTA, Damian Lee, Gary Payton, these are all misfits. My wife was asking me about Gary Payton and why did it take him so long to latch on to a team, and it's like, he's on his fifth or sixth team, and a lot of the time it's about the fit. Like what you do well doesn't fit on what some team
Exactly.
needs from you, and to see him just fitting in so well defensively, and his defensive attitude must be rubbing off on other people as well, and just to see him fitting in so well is awesome. I mean, so in that respect, you see these kind of like misfits from other places fitting into that culture, and that's what kind of reminded me of that 2010 Giants team.
So that's actually a really fair comparison. It's the culture, it legit is. I mean, that's what brought the competitiveness when it could have been easy to maybe like lay down. Like luckily the Warriors got out to a lead and led a lot of this game. But I mean, Gary Payton II, I talked about this a couple episodes ago. The fact that he's hitting his 3-point shots from the corner and from the wing, I mean, that's huge, right? Like his shot never looked ugly to me.
Hmm.
When I heard that his shot is what kept him off of teams when he was first kind of ending up on 10-day contracts with the Warriors, I was like, oh, I expected something way worse. So props to him. And again, that's still to me a game changer. If all of a sudden you could throw out this defensive ace and he can hit those shots. He shoots better than Kelly Oubre did for us last year.
And he'll make those putback dunks like that
Yeah.
putback he had in the first half. That was incredible. Like I was cooking dinner and I looked away and then I just heard like Peyton, oh my gosh. And then they they wouldn't play the replay for so long. I was so annoyed, but it was an incredible play. And he really fits so well because the Warriors have an inverted offense, right? Where he
Right.
can be down low. I mean, his finishing close to the basket, aside from the dunks, he actually finishes pretty well. And for a 6'2" dude, like he really finishes really well close to the basket. He's got like really nice touch.
Yeah, I noticed that like a month ago that he is just really good around the basket, period. Like he has really, really soft touch off the backboard. And it's kind of amazing too, because I expected him that if he didn't have a head of steam, that he would just get swatted a lot or would have to pass out of it. But he's really crafty at getting his shot off.
Very crafty.
And he obviously has way more lift just from a standing jump than most people anyway.
Yeah.
So
and quick lift too.
Exactly.
He's fast. Yeah.
Hockey fans, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, has a no-brainer offer that'll make you a winner once any shot gets past the goalie. New customers can bet just $1 on any NHL game and win $100 in free bets if either team scores. The NHL got rid of ties in 2005, so someone is going to light the lamp. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, no worries. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes all season long with DraftKings daily fantasy hockey contests. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now, use promo code TBPN, throw down $1 on any NHL game, and win $100 in free bets if either team scores a goal. That's promo code TBPN this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. Must be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit and $1 wager required. One per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Watching some of these bench dudes, like watching Otto Porter Jr. and Bielitsa in particular, it made me think, would you prefer having those two guys or Nicholas Batum and Patty Mills? Assuming also that Patty Mills would probably mean there's no Gary Payton II.
Yeah. I mean, we're a third of the way through the season. At this point, and you can't argue with the results. And the fact that getting them on vet minimums means that maybe you can get other dudes later or something like that, right? There's just more flexibility. And I think in maybe some way too, them being vet minimums. I mean, and Patty Mills and Batum have always been like really ace role players, but these guys are hungry in a different way, to see. I mean, Bielitsa is not physical true 5, but he's fighting out there. He's trying. And what more can you ask for? Is for a dude to just compete, right? Yeah. And he's doing that. And, he doesn't always make the best decision, but these guys are competing. They're fighting for their NBA lives. They're fighting to win and to be on a winning team and be a part of something. And not that those other dudes wouldn't, like Mills and Batum are total pros and they're winners as well. But you can't argue with the results right now.
Yeah, I would probably trade Bielitsa for Batum. But no.
It doesn't work for the cap, though.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, exactly. I mean, it was kind of a trick homer question, right? It's like we're 26-6 and still waiting for the best parts of our roster to come back. And it's worked out so far. I mean, you and I have talked about maybe Gasol and jettisoning Bielitsa eventually, but that's for another another day as the season
Yeah,
goes on.
not on Christmas, Patrick. Not on Christmas. Come on. There was a great moment where after Kaminga's, up and under basket, there was a timeout and
Yeah,
Bielitsa just like put his arm around him and like hugged him. It was like, yeah, that's how
yeah,
you do it, And that
yeah.
was just great. And I think at that point I was like, oh, we can't cut Bielitsa now.
I know.
These guys have got something going.
He's one of us now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's fine with me, like if Wiseman comes back and he can give you those minutes. And, props to Looney. Speaking of big men,
Yeah.
that dude fought hard. He had like 10 boards and he had that one dribble drive. And I was like, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And Doris Burke was like tripping. She's like, whoa, he's like, you can't overlook him anymore. And I was like, you kind of can.
But that sentiment, she was speaking for us all in that, like,
Yeah.
whoa, Looney had something in his bag. And hey, he's been working with Dejan Mijolovic. Oh man. So apologies for that. But he's showing more skills, and that's awesome to see. He had that put back dunk after Peyton missed the layup. That was great. Yeah, just a great team win. And speaking of Wiseman, because we're old school Warriors fans, so we always expect the worst. And I wasn't expecting them to win, so I was like, okay, let's think about, let's put this all in perspective. We may not win on Christmas. That's okay. Think about where we were a year ago. And so actually I went back and I looked at highlights from last year's Christmas game.
The Bucks
game, which was a terrible game. They lost by, 20 or 30 or whatever. But I just specifically watched the James Wiseman highlights,
Yeah.
And hey, I encourage all the Warriors fans to just go out and watch some Wiseman highlights. Just watch the highlights. We know it was rough last year at times, but just think about how much better he'll be now. Like, he can't be worse than those worst moments. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's going to take some time to fold him back in. They've talked about simplifying his role, but I really believe that once he gets healthy, he can really contribute to this team in smaller doses than what was expected of him last year. So, and just remember those coast to coast dunks, those occasional threes, the lobs and the blocks. Like, that's stuff that we don't have any of that right now. And imagine that on this team. So get your popcorn ready. It's going to be exciting. I'm usually not so positive. I don't know what's happening, but this is a fun time, right?
It's a Christmas miracle, man. I'm obviously a huge Wiseman fan, Wiseman apologist, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, it's similar to what you said with Gary Payton II. So Gary Payton II, he didn't stick because his shot wasn't that great. Other teams didn't need him for what he could do. They needed somebody who probably needed to do more. They probably needed a real point guard. They probably needed somebody who could initiate consistently. But on this team, he fills all the needs that they need from him and more, and surprisingly so. And for Wiseman, in that respect, it's like they don't need him to be the star number 2 pick in the 2020 draft and lead this team into the playoffs. No, they have the best record in the league now again, and they need him to compete against bigs like DeAndre Ayton, like Jokic, and not be a liability. I've talked about this. You and I have talked about this. There's a low bar that Wiseman needs to reach for him to be successful this season for the Warriors and contribute in a very, very positive way. And if he just focuses on those things at age 20, 21, then that's a great starting point for the following year with all this experience under his belt. If they go deep into the playoffs and win the finals potentially, then it just exponentially improves his chances of reaching his potential sooner rather than later. So regardless, I'm excited for what is to come, because I still don't think people realize how good this team will be, because a lot of the national media is down on Wiseman. A lot of people are like, well, Clay might not be what he is, and like, oh, Andre Iguodala is older. Andrew Wiggins will always revert to who he is and what he's been. But like, no, I mean, we've seen these guys, and we don't know exactly what Clay's going to look like, but like, we know that Wiseman actually has potential, and we know that Wiggins is, I mean, Wiggins is clicking because the team, the two Warriors teams he's played on before this season were not good, right? So
Yeah.
it was just like playing for the T-Wolves again. And so now he's just found his groove.
Mm-hmm.
And to go back to Otto Porter Jr. again and Bielitsa, it's like those guys in theory, especially Otto Porter Jr. being injury prone. Listen, he fights for rebounds. That's been talked about in the media by reporters of how much he likes rebounding, but like he doesn't have to work as hard on offense, obviously. So hopefully like that mitigates some of his injury proneness, you know what I mean? Because he's just spotting up. He's not getting in there and trying to have to battle too much or whatever he did before his Warriors stint. And his usage is going to be lower, you know what I mean? So hopefully that preserves some of these older dudes.
Yeah. I mean, with him, anytime you see an older player who used to be a better player than their current version, that version of them is still in there. You know what I mean? They still have that muscle memory. They still have those skills. Physically, he's certainly not the kind of lanky, springy guy that he was before, but he's gained the knowledge, the experience. His shot is so much better. I didn't know he was this good of a shooter. So, man, I mean, just keep saying it, but this team has something going, and I think before tonight I was like, the league has been in such a weird place, and not to bring it down to kind of real world stuff, but real world stuff is touching the league. And to see all these games, being postponed and rosters being flipped over, seeing Joe Johnson back in the league. But the silver lining is that you can have times like this where people down on your roster can step up and contribute to an important game, and hopefully everybody can just power through this a little bit and be safe, obviously, and healthy, because I want to see this team. I want to see this team in the playoffs. I want to see what they can do, because as much as we're talking about the depth guys who will definitely help you win games, I want to see Steph, Draymond, and Clay back in the playoffs with a real chance to win something. Because they know it's wide open. We all feel it. You just look at the league. We got a real chance. We got a real chance.
Yeah, a massive chance. I said about a month ago, I want to see something special. That's when you really dig in your heels as a fan.
Yeah.
And you want, like, earlier in the season, it's like, oh, this team is good. They're better than most people thought they would be. And so you're like, this is a nice ride. But now you're like really, really like invested, and you're digging your heels. And you're like, I want like an all-time great Warriors season. You know what I mean? And the depth lends itself to potentially something like that. And it's funny, man, because you're talking about having so many guys out. I'm like looking at the guys that played tonight. They're still better than the team that played last year. They're still better than last year's Warriors team.
Oh, those play-in teams were pretty bad.
I mean, just even their depth, right? They're 8-man rotation by the end of last season. As long as you're rolling Gary Payton II out there instead of Michael Mulder, and you're rolling Jonathan Kuminga out there, this team is still missing all these dudes. It's still better than who they had last year. I don't know, man. Like watching this, I talked about how this game reminded me of some of those Rockets game, largely because of Chris Paul, and largely because they have a bunch of guys who could score. And it's not like the Suns didn't play well, their starting lineup played pretty solidly. But a huge thing was also the fact that the Warriors only had 9 turnovers, which is, to me, like an ungodly number in a positive way.
It's like amazing. That's amazing.
I'm like, whoa, they really, really took care of the ball. But to me, it's like, hey, the basketball gods have spoken. Chris Paul can never win a title. Like, I think that's just what it comes down to for the Phoenix Suns and Chris Paul and whatnot.
There's a handful of players in the league that you just love beating. And, you don't realize it until the end of the game and the handshakes and whatnot. You're like, ooh, that felt good.
Yeah. Would you say this is the best win of the year?
Considering the profile, the stakes, the circumstances, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Same here. I think the games that led up to that first Suns game, for the most part, the Warriors were playing well, forming their identity. I honestly feel like they haven't played as well or as consistently since that game. Actually, the Clippers game before that. So with most people assuming, because they're down so many guys, that the Suns would probably win this game. And then the way that they won it and the way they kind of pummeled them at the end, you know, like it was over. It was over with like a minute and a half left. And I would definitely put that up there, especially since the Suns had the best record by half a game. So it feels good. It feels good. And I was super into this game. I was watching on my laptop. Christmas stuff was happening behind me, and then people would ask me things. I'd be like, no, I'm good.
Yeah. I was playing board games with my daughter. And I was just like,
you're like, oh, okay, you win. Take it. Yeah, sure.
Well, it was a collaborative game. So fortunately it went.
There was like a FaceTime call. I was like, I'll be there. I'll be there after the game when it's over.
Well, this is going to make Christmas night really nice. So this was a nice surprise. Wasn't expecting it, but a nice gift on Christmas.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, thank you for taking time out of your holiday to hop on and talk about this.
Always. Anytime.
Awesome. Well, you have a good rest of your Christmas day.
Oh, it's pretty dark here.
Christmas
they
night?
kept saying on the broadcast this afternoon. I'm like, it's pitch black where I am.
All right, man.
All right.
Well, that's another episode of the Oakland Warriors podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Feel free to hit me up on Twitter at Patrick Epino, EPINO, or at Oakland Warriors. Check us out at oaklandwarriors.com, and be sure to tell your fellow Warrior fan friends to tune in and listen. The Oakland Warriors podcast is produced by National Film Society and is a part of the Basketball Podcast Network. And if you're so inclined, please leave us a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and say nice stuff about us if there are reviews allowed or whatever. Anyway, be safe, and I'll see you on the other side. That's it. Music in this episode provided by Paper Sun. Special thanks to Paul Amardo for production support. See you next time, and go Dubs.